So how does a battery system work? Well, simply, solar is generated from your solar system, supplies power to your house. If there's any leftover energy, rather than going back into the grid, it goes out and is charged by the battery. If the solar can't supply enough energy, well then it will come from the battery, and the solar and the battery will supply enough energy. And at night time, when the solar's off, it'll come from the battery. Once the battery's flat, and then it'll come from the grid. Many people ask, is my solar system battery ready? Is my inverter battery ready? Now, most people will get a misleading answer to that, but they probably don't really understand what they're asking either. Now, a true battery-ready inverter is actually a hybrid inverter. Now, a hybrid inverter is actually an inverter that has a solar connection as well as a battery connection. So the idea is that you might install a hybrid inverter and just connect the solar panels, and then later on you might connect the battery in, or you may even connect the battery in right away. There are some disadvantages and some things to think about with that. Part of the problem is someone might install a hybrid inverter and then 2 or 3 years later decide to install a battery. But because technology develops and changes so fast, they might find they're in a situation where there isn't a battery that's compatible with their battery inverter, or the batteries that are available are very limited. So there's a consideration there. The other consideration is normally a hybrid inverter and the battery connected to it are different brands. Now, speaking from experience, we often find that if there's an issue with the system, the battery inverter manufacturer will blame the battery manufacturer, the battery manufacturer will blame the inverter manufacturer, and we end up with a situation where nobody wants to take responsibility and the poor customer ends up with a major issue on their hands. So the other option is a AC coupled battery system, and that's where the battery inverter and the battery is integrated into one unit. So an example of that is the Tesla Powerwall. Now, the idea behind this type of system is it works totally independent of your solar inverter. So you might already have a solar system that was installed 5 years ago. So you could easily come and retrofit an integrated battery system into that system without needing to remove the existing inverter. They both work totally independent of each other, but the battery system is actually monitoring the output of the solar system, and because it can collect that information, it can make decisions on whether to charge, discharge, even whether to charge off the grid. Now, just because you have a battery system doesn't necessarily mean that when the grid goes down, you're going to have backup power. In some battery systems, backup is an optional extra, and it's really important to understand what does that backup actually do. So there's a few different levels. One of them is called an EPS, which stands for Emergency Power Supply. And what that means that is if the grid goes down, everything shuts down, your power goes out, and then the system reboots in backup mode and will turn on any circuits that you have backed up. So it's kind of like a partial solution. Another solution is what you call a UPS, and that is an uninterruptible power source, which means that if the power goes out, whatever's backed up won't even flinch. If you're watching TV, you wouldn't even know that your power's gone out. That's a really important consideration when selecting a battery system. So what size battery should you install? Firstly, there's no point installing a battery if A, you're not going to be able to charge it with your solar system, or whether it nowhere near covers your nighttime load. So the average house would use around 20 kilowatt hours a day. So you really want a battery system that could at least provide, say, at least 10 kilowatt hours. Another consideration is the battery's ability to be able to take that solar generated energy and also to be able to deliver it to the house. So an example is some storage batteries might only have a 2.5 kilowatt inverter in it. So you might be generating 5 kilowatts of solar power and no one's at home during the day, so you've got 5 kilowatts of energy that's available to go into your battery. But if the limitation is a 2.5 kilowatt inverter, then the battery's going to be trickle charged while the rest of the energy is going to be sent back into the grid. And vice versa at night. If you've got a 5 kilowatt load on in your house, the oven's on and the cooktop's on, and you've got this great big battery, but it only has a 2.5 kilowatt inverter on it, then it means that you're only ever going to be able to get 2.5 kilowatts delivered out of your battery at any given time. and the rest will actually be coming from the grid. So the inverter is a really, really important part of the battery system and needs to be taken into account.